Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated. Of course, I'm your Las Vegas beat writer. Thank you guys for joining me today. This is my day 3 update from here at the NFL owners meeting at the Ritz-Carlton and the JW Marriott in Orlando, Florida. So it's great to be here with you all. I appreciate you joining us. We've got a lot of information that we want to go over today. We need to start, however, if you did not watch Antonio Pierce's interview yesterday, I would greatly encourage you to do that. I thought he was phenomenal. In my opinion, it was the very best that he's ever done. And I thought he was excellent. So I would encourage you to make sure that you go watch that video. Over 10,000 of you had at the time of this taping, and I think a lot more of you should. The way that he just handles himself, the way he answers things, he's very genuine. He is no BS. He doesn't try to be who he's not. I just highly respected it and thought it was the best that he did. Also, don't forget, follow us on Instagram at Hondo SR, at X, formerly known as Twitter, when you go to at Hondo Carpenter and SI.com/NFL, /Raiders is where you find us on the internet. Lots of articles, lots of stuff. So thank you all for being part of it. All right, I want to talk about several things. First, I want to start with Tom Brady and his ownership being on hold. Now, the Raiders, and I understand why, are not really communicating on it. I don't think they're being evasive. I don't think they're being sneaky. It's internal stuff. So, why talk about that? I get that. I understand it. The NFL people, however, are talking. There are two things that I have heard. I am going to wait a little bit to share those two things because I need to hear it, first of all, from more people, make sure it's accurate, but I believe it is based on who told me. But what I would say to you is this: the prevailing theme has been that Mark Davis wants Tom Brady to be an owner. Tom Brady wants to be an owner, and that's factual. That has not changed at all, according to everything that I've learned. There have been a couple of roadblocks. I don't know that they're strong enough to stop it. I don't know that. But I also did not get the sense that it's 100% as much as a slam dunk as maybe as was thought previously. Again, I'm going to keep digging on the two things that I've heard to get those. It's nothing slimy. It's nothing sinister. It's nothing evil. Nothing like that. So sometimes, anytime there's a little delay or whatever, people are like, "Ooh, what's going?" It's not tremendously sexy either. But I would tell you, and this is not one of the two reasons, I think there's some animus among NFL owners who may not want Tom Brady in an ownership booth right now. I don't think they're against him being an owner. I think they're probably against it a little bit right now, and not because it's the Raiders, just for some other reasons. Again, I'm going to keep fettering those out. I hope to be able to get that information and talk to you tomorrow on day 4 update about it. But I just wanted you to know I'm working it and on it. Got a ton of email. I don't even know how much email I got yesterday from people saying, "Are you going to update how the NFL party was last night?" No. So many of you, if you're not familiar with this, at the NFL owners meetings, there's always a night where the presidents, the GMs, the head coaches, the owners, and the media get together for an off-the-record evening. Now, I remember General Patton once said, "It is purely social. That means it's purely political." And I always think of that when I go to events like this, but it really wasn't. It wasn't political at all. And when I say political, I don't mean Republican, Democrat. It's not like that. It's really a wonderful evening put on by the NFL. Great food, just a great event. And but it's off the record, meaning you don't talk about anything. So I won't be doing that. But it was a wonderful night. Had a chance to speak to some tremendous NFL people, current people, former players, ownership people, a lot of coaches, and it was great. Yeah, it was good to see some old friends. It was good to hear some scuttlebutt that they brought up. I purposely didn't bring anything up of reporting value. In fact, a couple of times I reminded people, hey, this is a social event. But it was a wonderful evening, and the NFL did a great job. And the NFL and their owners deserve a lot of props. That's all I'll say. It was a wonderful night and appreciate it. All right. The next thing I want to talk about with the Raiders, and I did not hit this yesterday because I wanted to do a little bit more digging. And I want to go back, and I don't want to spend a ton of time here, but I do think it's important to revisit. So, as you know, Josh Jacobs made the business decision, and I know that irritates some of you, to sign with the Green Bay Packers. I mentioned to you yesterday that the Raiders made him a very significant offer. In fact, everyone I spoke to about the Raiders offer outside of the Raiders told me they thought they offered too much. But they said they understood the Raiders prioritized re-signing their own people, and they understood why. They just said, we thought they offered too much. And I told you that yesterday, but said he made a business decision and you honor that. And I do believe that. But I'm going to tell you, after digging, there is no animus. Nobody hates Josh. I want to make that very, very clear. If they saw him, they would hug him and love him. I'm sorry, I'm in the lobby here, the Ritz-Carlton. So as sometimes people walk by, they wave or say something. I'm not being disrespectful to you. They don't know I'm doing a podcast. And so I begin to dig on that and to really try to ascertain. And because I had told you it was a business decision, you made a business decision. The Raiders made a good offer. He didn't accept it. Whatever, you move on and you thank him for his service. All that's still true. But I'm going to tell you, there are some people, more than one, in that building that feel hurt, that feel like that was our guy. We stepped up. And one person said to me, I really love Josh, but I feel a little played. So just leaving that there. Nobody's disparaging him. They love him. But I know that zung the fans pretty hard that he left. I think there were some that were, it didn't zing me. I'm not a fan, but it didn't zing me at all. You just could not pay that money. And at the money that I heard they offered yesterday, I would have been very critical. In fact, if the numbers that I heard were accurate, and there's no reason to go over them because he's already signed, I think it was a very bad offer by the Raiders. But they prioritize re-signing their guys, and they pay what they think somebody's worth. And clearly they thought very, very highly of him. So I'll just say to you that I thought that was fascinating. I thought it was very, very interesting to me the way that went out, and some of the hurt. And so they move on. I will tell you this, there are offers still on the table with the Raiders, with free agents. Now, prices are dropping every day, and the closer we get to the draft over the next month, the prices are going to really. And then what happens is after that time, then after teams find their draft needs, prices pretty much stay the same. And then as you get closer to camp, they go up a little bit. Now, last year, I mentioned this before, Marcus Peters bet on himself and he won. There's usually not as many winners on guys that wait as losers as far as I mean, they're all getting paid a lot of money, but losing as far as the amount of money that they get. I expect, I had one of my best friends made a comment today that I thought was really impressive. I hadn't thought about this. I don't know. I guess I had thought about it, but not in the vernacular that they used. But they made the comment to me. I still think there's a couple of people that are going to be signed as free agents that could start. I think there could be one for sure, maybe two. I know the offers that are out there, so maybe three. But yes, the Raiders are not done at all in free agency. It's just a lot of people, again, look at it as like a sprint, and it's not. It is a marathon over the process. I want to get back to something because last night I had another NFL person come up to me who I've known a long time. And after some pleasantries, he said, I'm going to ask you a question. I said, sure. And he said, is it true there are like 30, 35 guys in the Raiders working out regular? I said, yeah, that's what I'm hearing. And he looked at me and he was just stunned. Now, this guy's been in the league a long time because I've never heard of any team, and he's been on some good teams, any team like that. He goes, that is phenomenal. And so I said to him, how'd you hear about that? And he goes, one of our captains on our team, he goes, we're not allowed to have any type of dealings with them at all. I mean, if they're in the building working out or whatever, and they see a coach, if they see a president, if they see a GM, they can say, hey, how are you? Good to see you. Pleasantries, but no football. He said, one of my players, I'm at a gas station, wheels into the gas station because it's right by, we live near each other. And he's like, dude, I was just talking to one of my buddies who plays for the Raiders. And the person in the NFL told me who it was, doesn't matter. And like, he's sending me pictures of the Raiders. He's like, oh yeah, we got a ton of us working out. And he looked at me and he said, that is phenomenal. And that is going to pay monster dividends next year. He goes, you can't pay for that. And he told me, he goes, in my position with my team, I'd stroke a huge check to have 30, 35 of my guys working on the building every day. A huge check. Now, I'm also going to tell you, and I learned this from him, that one of the Raiders players had told one of his players, goes, yeah, a couple of us are even going to do vacation together. Now, you may think, well, why is that a big deal? Well, because they work together, and you got to understand, like wherever you work for a living, let's say that you work at MGM Casino. The people that you all work with, you see every day, but you all live there. Okay. You go to the work for a football team, everybody comes from another city. And in most places, they go home to their home city. But the Raiders are working out together. Some of them are planning on vacationing together. And other NFL teams, I alluded to this yesterday, but this conversation happened after my podcast. But he said to me, he goes, that's invaluable. He goes, that pays off, that builds a relationship. And then he said something that this is what really clicked. He says, it invokes accountability. Now, I want to put this in perspective. Tom Izzo is the Michigan State Hall of Fame college basketball coach, been to 26 straight tournaments, won national titles, been to more Final Fours over his career than anyone, including Coach K. Tom Izzo has a saying that a player-coached team is better than a coach-coached team. He said, because when your players are coaching each other, that's the best form of accountability. He's often referred to Kobe Bryant. That Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan is the same way. Irvin, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. The best players are your hardest workers and the most accountable. Okay, Kobe Bryant is legendary for being the first person in the gym and the last person out. Okay, Max Crosby, every day, 6 o'clock, he's in the building. 5 o'clock, in the building. He is just working like an animal. I have told you guys numerous times, he is the only football player that I have ever been around that reminds me of Kobe and Jordan and Magic. Now, I've had the privilege of seeing those three men not only play, but practice. And he's just that guy. Max is that guy. And so what I want to address is that what is going on there is all Max. Max has got guys in there. Max is working these guys, and they are all buying in, every one of them. So I texted someone yesterday and just told them what this person said. And I said, you guys are impacting other football teams because they don't have what you have. And I'm going to keep the person's response very generic. I'm not quoting. I'm going to paraphrase just because I don't want you to be able to maybe get an idea who it is. But their response was, we want this. We left meat on the bone last year. We were one game away from a playoff berth. It hurt. And Mark gave us, our coach, talking about Mark Davis, we got something to prove. There's meat on the bone. Oh. If you're a Raider fan and that doesn't get your fire going, your wood's wet. I mean, dear Lord God, your players are doing something unheard of. And they're hungry. They're hungry. So in talking to this person, I want to give you a couple of updates. Aiden O'Connell, busting his rear, working hard. Very much working hard. I told you Malcolm Kuntz is walking through the building, no arrogance, just a completely different guy. Found his confidence. There's a lot of love for Tyree. Just a lot of love for the team and just how everyone's coming together, how everybody's working. I've had several of you ask me, do you think there's tension between Aiden and Gardner? None. Aiden knows Gardner's competing with him. Loves him. And Gardner loves him. There's none of it. It's not there's an animus on this team. And I think that is phenomenal. And so the Raiders are getting a lot of chatter because of that. There's a lot of chatter about the draft, and I want to address that very quickly. For years, most of my lifetime, you very rarely expected the Raiders to do what they should do. They don't. They just make picks that you're like, wow. Now the mystery behind the Raiders is they're solid. I told you day one, I had more than one NFL executive use the term healthy to describe the Raiders. And that is the general sentiment that continues is now they've done such a good job of positioning the team with free agents and other things. And there are still holes where, let's not pretend like I told you, I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. I think they're a playoff team, but they're not a Super Bowl team. But they've done such a good job that now the question is, what will they do? Now's the intrigue. Now is the intrigue. Now, I've had several of you talk about, because AP talked about it yesterday. You can go watch the video about wanting to be aggressive, do anything that he thinks will help the team. And everyone assumed, okay, they're moving up. Well, but it also, what if it helps the team to say the cost is too high? That's helping the team as well. There isn't one quarterback in this draft that I think would step in next year and make them a playoff team. Now, I know there's been some people say that. I don't see that. And I'm going to explain a couple of reasons why, because it's not a slam on anybody. I think there's some good quarterbacks that are going to go high in this draft. I do not think all of them are, but I think that there are a couple. Because there is the adjustment period to the NFL from the college game. I had it expressed to me this way once. The jump from high school to college is massive. But the jump from college to pros is Grand Canyon-ish. Look at CJ Stroud, who was the best rookie last year, and he was phenomenal. phenomenal. Look at what he did. There still is a huge, abundant room for improvement with him. But still, man, CJ Stroud, all the credit in the world. Love that kid. Loved him last year coming out. Great kid who happens to be a great player. And I know he's a multimillionaire and a grown man. I'm just old, so when I say kid, I'm just being, not being disrespectful. But I think I think this team is already poised to take a step. So do I think there's a quarterback next year and the reason that they get to the playoffs is because of the quarterback? No, in the rookie class. But I think there's some really good ones. But I think the team's going to get there even if they just stay the line with Aiden and Gardner and Anthony. That is another name that is not getting talked about who's on the roster. Anthony Brown, they signed him last year, a quarterback who's got experience in the league, very athletic. I am not trying to pretend that they think he's Randall Cunningham, but they like him and they like what he offers and what they think he has the potential to develop into. I can tell you that was one of the reasons why Gardner Minshew's deal is a 2-year deal. It's also, yes, he gets paid a good amount of money, but it's a no pain, no loss if they lose him next year because they cut him because they do like Anthony, and I still expect them to draft a quarterback. Now, I want to talk about a couple other things that are important, then I'm going to let you go from here at the owners' meetings. So I've been asking several of NFL executives, what do you think's the story around the Raiders that nobody's talking about? I've asked that to 6 people. Just what do you think the story around the Raiders is that nobody's talking about? And here's the thing that got me. 5 of the 6 people had the same answer. And I want to talk about that one. One guy said to me, I think everybody's talking about Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, but nobody's talking about, okay, they got Jim. Jim's a good coach. We expect the Bolts to be better. But they're coming out of salary cap hell. They're having to get rid of a lot. There's an adjustment to Jim. And let me tell you, Jim is an adjustment. They go, I think people are thinking that they're going to be a lot better than I expect them to take a step back, which is hard to take a step back considering where they were. But and they said that Denver, a lot of people acting like getting rid of Russell is going to all of a sudden make them a playoff team. They were playing better. They were ascending with Russell and then benched him. But the Raiders still beat them twice. And 5 of the 6 said, I think that what is not being talked about the most is that the Raiders have gotten better everywhere. They've got a better backup in Gardner. They've added Christian Wilkins. They've re-signed several of their key guys. They've added some guys. I had one guy tell me, he goes, the other guy who was the 6th one said to me, I wouldn't have re-signed Josh Jacobs. I think Zamir White showed a ton in college. I think he showed you a ton last year. He goes, I wouldn't have even considered re-signing Josh. I would just let him go and rode the Zamir train. That was the 6th one. But 5 of the 6 talked about that there's not enough talk about the Raiders because Harbaugh has sucked so much air out of the AFC West talk, along with, the world champion back-to-back. So I thought that was very interesting, extremely interesting, just about the perception and the talk around the Raiders. And there's a lot of it here. Last night, well, never mind, that was last night. I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of talk around the Raiders, just the unity. I'm telling you guys, now I said this, I believe it was Brian Baldinger, and I want to credit him, but if I'm wrong, I'm not lying to you, but I think it was Brian Baldinger who made the statement that Max was going to be the greatest, potentially be the greatest Raider ever. But what I want to remind Baldy and all my listeners know, I said that long before him. Max Crosby, Irvin Magic Johnson said to me once, all great players, the difference between being good and great is great players are guys who are good that make other players better. That's Max Crosby. You know, there's a reason Max Crosby wears the Kobe Bryant and the Michael Jordan clothes. There's a reason why Getsy comes in for an interview. He's not even been hired. And Max is like, hey, come on. And they go to the cafeteria and sit down and eat and talk ball. He wants to know who you bringing in my locker room. I love that. And I think you got a coach who's bought in, players who bought in, general managers bought in. Now, another important piece to talk about, and it is the relationship between Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce. They obviously, it's only been a couple of months. They're still learning each other, but I am told they have had epic, and that's a quote, epic conversations, not just about Raiders, but their philosophy of football, understanding the philosophy. You know, there's a Bible verse that says that reliable communication permits progress. And I love that verse. And because when there's reliable communication, you're able to go forward. You know, again, not preaching at you, but another Bible verse, can two people walk together unless they be in agreement? Why? Because if you're not in agreement, there becomes disunity and you don't want to be around people. Think about this in your life. Do you want to be around people that I don't agree with them on anything? I don't have anything in common with them? No, you like to be around people that you enjoy, that you have a similarity of interest. Heard the term once, commonality of interest. I love that. And so it's been very interesting for others to watch them gel together. And there is a ton of trust in Antonio Pierce for Tom Telesco. And Tom Telesco, a lot of times when you have a strong GM, which the Raiders do, and I want you to know, I've said all along, they needed that. So this is not a negative. I'm supporting it. But when you have that, you know, there's a lot of times a GM's like, hey, this is my turf, stay off my turf. And it's not that way. The strongest voice that Tom Telesco's listening to is Antonio Pierce. And I think it just sets the Raiders up for some really tremendous growth opportunities. Lastly, I was going to address this earlier and I forgot. And I know I said the previous point was my last, so please forgive me. But I want to address this point. I talked to you before free agency. There was a lot of free agents that wanted to join the Raiders. I knew that for an absolute fact. I talked to some of them, and I've had some people ask, in no way being jerks, but hey, Hondo, I thought you talked about a lot of people. You know, we've re-signed a lot of our own. There's been 3 free agents. Can you talk about that process? Yes. First of all, I know of a couple of guys that wanted to come at a very much a position of need that the Raiders' feeling was good guys. We like them. They want to be here. That's cool. But they don't fit our culture or our locker room. Okay. I respect that because these are 2 guys that would have won them a lot of good press, but they didn't fit the locker room. Then there's another situation where, okay, they want to be here. We want them, but man, somebody offered a ton more money. So wanting to be there was overridden by somebody offered a ton more money. So that's still going on. There are some guys that I know that they want, that there are offers out to, and it's just a matter of going through the process and getting everything checked out. Hearing a lot around the scouting world that the Raiders are spending a ton of time on offensive linemen right now. Ton of time. And they've been doing that, which you know that. But man, they are hot and heavy into it. And so I'm going to get a lot more into the draft starting next week. We're really doing owners meeting stuff now and recapping all this. Next week, though, I'm going to start really digging out of the draft, have a couple surprises for you, some surprise guests and other stuff. But that's where we stand right here. That's day 3 update from here at the owners meetings. I hope that information was helpful. I hope I always look at it as my job is to bring you inside the building, to tell you what I'm hearing, to tell you what I'm experiencing, and bringing you information. You don't really care about my opinions, and I don't blame you, but the opinions of people in the league and executives and all that matters, and that's what I'm trying to disseminate to you. So again, thank you for all that you do. Please follow us on IG at Hondo SR, X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification buttons. And if you haven't watched the Antonio Pierce interview, you should. I believe it would be very beneficial to you. Have a great day from here in Tampa. I'm Orlando, excuse me. God bless y'all.